Hello everybody, welcome to the fourth video challenge of the month. My name is Wade Acuff and I'm going to be your host today. We will have 5 challenges this month. That's right, that's a lot. 5 challenges. Next Tuesday we'll be back with some backgrounds, some animated backgrounds. But for today, we're going to alter time itself. That's right, we're going to do some time-lapse videos. But before we get into it, I want to say hi to everybody. What's up? Chad is right over here, in case you're wondering who I'm looking at. We did a big round of shouting out hello to everybody, but I'm going to do it anyway. Again, what's up, Franco, Oliver, Peter, Jack? Jack, thanks so much for being a mod for us today. So many more that I've missed. Of course, Umacorn, PR. How's everybody doing? Okay, but let's get into today's challenge. I do have for you a document, a starter file. It is really just the setup, just our composition at 1080 by 1920 vertical format for social media, because we are going to work with time lapse, trying to get into speeding up our time lapse video, our video in general. I did provide an example for you, which I will pull in now. And this is just something that I did real quick, just something so we could have something to work with. And I'm going to zip right in here. You can see already that the timeline is 40 minutes long. That's not gonna work on social media. It's got, unless you're doing like long form on YouTube, that's a little different. But if you want to make a reel or something, we're going to use some. Oh no, okay. We're getting some hesitation here. Okay, so I'll zip through this real quick. Got this little guy, and we get through the drawing part, and then we get to some shading. But like I said, I want this to be about 20 seconds long. If you look at the footage, you can see that it's 15 minutes, 49 seconds, and 5 frames. But I want to go to the point, let's see, 20-ish seconds. I'll just type this in here on our work area timeline, and it'll move your playhead, this little line right here, to the exact location you want. I'm going to press end to bring our workspace in, and you'll see that we're at 20 seconds. But our time lapse, we only get a few lines in, nothing crazy. We have to adjust that real quick, and it's super simple to do. So yeah, to do that, just right click, go to time, enable time remapping, or you can click on your layer and go to layer, time, enable time remapping. And you'll notice a couple of things. I'm going to zoom out real far here. You'll notice a couple of things. You'll get 2 keyframes automatically on your footage in the with the time remap. That will be 1 keyframe at 0 at the beginning, and 1 at the end, which is exactly at, what did I say, 15 minutes 49 seconds and 4 frames. So you get 1 keyframe at the beginning, another keyframe at the end, and right now it matches up our timeline exactly because it's 1-to-1. But as soon as I start moving this, I can stretch or reduce, which in this case we're going to make a time lapse, so we're reducing, speeding up our footage. And I just pulled all that time to exist. We get our full 15 minutes in about 20 seconds. And if you're wondering, I recorded all of this on OBS, which is actually what I'm streaming from right now. I believe it's the obsproject.com. It's open broadcaster software. You can just look it up. I think it's still free to download. You can do screen recording, which is what this is. You can broadcast, there's a lot of little bells and whistles. You could record audio and that sort of thing. And we're going to talk about a little bit later too with another example. But so we have this example. It's slowly building. I'm just kind of letting it render, letting it play blast through this. And let's say right there is good. So we'll let it play in. You'll see it's real quick. Zip, zip, zip. And for a social media video, you probably want to have something, a little finesse at the end, something like a payoff, some sort of result. I could let this go to the shading portion of it and just stop, but then it just stops. There's nothing, nothing exciting about that at all. I want to stop this at the drawing bit before I get into the shading. Because if you do watch it, you'll notice I do some shading and then I change it and then I go back. Not the most straightforward. So I will stop this right here. But instead of stopping it necessarily, like cutting it off right there, I can just add a keyframe. And it's going to add a keyframe at, well, I don't know, 8 minute 59 seconds and 13 frames, right where I want the drawing to stop. And then all I have to do is remove the last frame. But I'm not going to do that yet because I want to duplicate this. Just going to duplicate this. It's going to retain all the exact keyframes, pressing Command and Control D. But here's what I'm going to do. I want to save this last frame. So I'm going to get rid of the previous 2 frames. So now all you see is one solid frame. The last frame of the video is locked in because it is keyframed. You don't have to put a hold on it. You don't have to do anything like that. It's just going to stay at that keyframe. I could change the time on this if I wanted to. I could go back, do whatever, and it's still going to stay locked on that one keyframe. So if you ever want to like put a hold on, this is one way to do it. You could just hold the keyframe by adding a hold frame. But in this case, I want this to come to about the 15-second mark. Let's dive back into. I'm going to put my playhead around 15 seconds because the top layer is going to be the results. I'm going to move our. Let's see. Let me do it this way. I'm going to cut that. So I moved our drawing portion, but basically stretched it back out to where it stops right around 15 seconds, and then bam, we'll get this result. I no longer need this keyframe because we won't see past that, but I think I will bring that in so that it cuts that off. Okay, so really now there's still not a lot of action happening. I'm just going to add a real simple ending to this. Like right now, there's hardly any difference between the drawing and the shaded version. But if I come in here and just add, I'm going to go with position and scale. I'm going to add a couple of keyframes there. Move down maybe like 4 or 5 frames. Add another keyframe. Come back to the start. I'm going to scale this way up and move it to about the center, maybe even larger. Something like that. Choose the second keyframes here. I'll jump in here so you can see they are two separate. The position and the scale. Add an easy ease on that. Do a little play blast to see what that looks like. Here, I'll move this so we can see it a little bit quicker. Bam. So you get some kind of like, oh, results. We can make that a little snappier just by decreasing that time it takes to zoom in there. Maybe even adjust these frames. I know we're kind of working with a small. Here, let's get this one. This is the position, and this is the scale. I don't want to mess around with that too much. Just enough that it, there we go, a little snappier. Maybe too snappy. Maybe add a little bit of motion blur by just turning motion blur on, and we get something like that. Boom, done. In the app, I would probably add some type. I would probably, like ta-da, I don't know, something. Definitely add some music, whatever. But as far as affecting our video, that's what I would do, something along those lines. Let's move on to something that's a little bit longer. I'm going to make a new composition. This one I'm going to change to 1920 by 1080. And I'm going to bring in some footage. Now, I did not provide this for you because it's like 2.5 gigs of video. And I'm just going to drag this down. Now, I'm doing this for a reason. I could have brought this into its own comp and made a comp out of it. And it would have form fitted to that video footage. So whatever the size it would be, the comp would be that size. Whatever the length it would be, the comp would be that length. I'm doing it this way just to show you what you can do in case a certain problem arises, and we'll get to that in a minute. So this is, I'll zoom in here to the end or closer to the end, and this is a little floaty skeleton of an astronaut, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of show you how this works. So this is a screen recording from OBS, and it did capture Photoshop in all of its glory. You can see all of the steps and moves. Now, it may be something you want. Like, you can kind of see me jumping over here and grabbing different brushes and doing, you may want some of that. May want to highlight some of that. Probably not in a time lapse. So I'm just looking to reduce this to, again, probably 20-ish seconds, something like that. But let's say in this case, I do want to get rid of this. Super simple. Just add a mask. If you press G while you're selected on your footage, you will see the little mask symbol with a pen. And I will grab and just start making a simple little mask all the way around. Bam. And then, of course, we can add a solid layer behind it if we wanted to with the same color. Click OK. Drag it behind, and we've got a free floating little astronaut. And this gives me some wiggle room. I'm going to rotate it so that it fits that format a little bit better. Probably somewhere in this range. And then I might scale it up slightly. Maybe move it over just a bit, something like that. And so now it's zipping along and it's getting made. Now, the issue I was talking about earlier, it was right now we have this set to 40 minutes in length, 40 minutes and 10 frames, I believe. If I press Control or Command K, it will bring up our settings, and you can see we only have the duration set to this. So you could go into the settings. Let me make sure I grab my footage. You could match the footage length, which is 1 hour, 6 minutes, 48 seconds, and 9 frames. You could put that in directly into the duration, and you'd have, or you could drag it down to its own comp. But I brought this example in case you're already working in a comp size that you like. You already have your timeline set to the length you want it, and you bring in footage, you might run into this particular problem. If I go and add, right-click, time, enable time remapping, you only see 1 frame. Well, the good news is, if you remember, time remap adds a frame at the beginning and a frame at the end. You can come over here to this next keyframe button, and it will select it. And you won't see anything in the comp preview because you're out of the comp. But if you make sure you deselect current frame, or hit this little button that says add remove keyframe at current time, it should remove it, and then you'll be stuck at 0 because right now we have only 1 frame that has a keyframe, and that is 0. So no matter how much you toggle, slide back and forth, you're not going to see your time lapse because nothing is time lapse. You're not even going to see any footage moving. So we're going to do what I did before. Move this down to about the 20-second mark. I can punch that in directly again. 20 seconds. I'm going to press N. I think N stands for end of your workspace. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what that stands for. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. I did not mean to bump this, so that should not be bumped. And that should be the first keyframe. Yes, still is. Okay, so now at our 20-second mark, we want to have that second keyframe, the end of your footage. All you have to do is punch in a number over the amount of your footage. In this case, I'm just going to put 2 hours. And when I hit enter, bam, it adds a keyframe that is already at the last frame of your footage. So now we should see our full playback, full time lapse happening for us. And now we have something we can work with. So I'm going to go ahead and do, we got to have a little punch for this if we want to add this to social media. Also for vertical and horizontal I guess if you're presenting this horizontally on Instagram, make sure you add like the little sticker that says turn sideways. You don't have to. I think people are smart enough not to have to, see that, but I don't know. You might want to play it safe. I'm going to drag this down to the last frame. Just like before, there's nothing happening after that. But unlike the previous example, I have a full finished, well, semi-finished version of this. And here's a little trick. If you duplicate this, say these were the same size. I'm going to pull this in real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. The composition I'm bringing in now is not the same size clearly because the canvas size in Photoshop was bigger than the screen recording size. But if they were the same size, it would carry over other aspects like rotation. If I click on the rotation, you'll see they're both at 12 degrees. The scale is going to be the same for both. And I'll just do that again so you can see what I was talking about. I'm going to duplicate this. If you hold down Alt and drag over that layer, it's going to drop it with all the same transforms. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this. Now, of course, I want to scale this way down. And you'll also notice it has the mask. Well, it doesn't have to have the mask. Just go to mask, press M to get to your mask, and then none. We don't want that. Now we do want to match this background, so we'll just add another background. Control Y, Control Command Y, and then we'll color correct for a solid. And I just selected on that color. And now we have a little color here, that background color that matches. I do want to match these up slightly. So I'm going to make this a little transparent, drag this into space. It's actually pretty close scale-wise. I might make it, you know what? It's fine. 35, sure, just a little bit smaller. I'm trying to line up the skull bit a little bit more. It doesn't have to match up directly because I am going to add a little movement to this and a little transition at this 15-second mark. But how am I going to do that? So let's turn this back on. Let's turn our opacity back to 100%. And I think what I'm going to do is grab both of these, set this to Alt bracket, close bracket, will bring us to our 15-ish second mark. Grab both of those, Control Shift or Command Shift C, and call this time lapse. And I'm going to drag this above our floating. So now we've got, can I stretch this out? I cannot because I shrunk it. Okay, I'm going to redo some of that. Composing this again, time lapse. I wanted to have a little extra wiggle room, but it took that wiggle room option away from me when I brought everything down to the size that I wanted it, lengthwise in the timeline. So this way I have a little bit of spare room I can use. Because what I want to do is just simply change, animate the opacity. I'm going to add a keyframe and move down to the end of this. Zero this out. And so now we get a transition like this. Which is, it's okay on its own. It may not be fast enough. I'm not sure how, if After Effects is going to cooperate with us here. Yeah, it's okay. But I'm also going to add a blur to our floating image. So I'm going to turn this off for now. And then do fast box. There we go. Add a fast box blur to this. So go ahead and add my keyframe at like 60% or 60, just the number. And then here I'm going to add a 0. I'm going to 0 this out. Let's see what that looks like. If After Effects will cooperate with us. It's working on it. Okay, let's turn this back on. We should start to see a little bit. Oh, you know what? Let me make this a little easier for After Effects. Turn our resolution down to about halfway. Okay, there we go. We got something. It's not bad. It's not a bad transition. But I want on this last bit, and maybe I'll go about halfway into the transition. And on our floating, I'll add a keyframe. And then maybe move this just slightly. Add easy ease on the first one by pressing F9. And we should get a little bit of movement. Yeah, just a little bit of movement as if the astronaut is floating away. And of course, add dramatic music in your whatever app you're using. And then you've got a nice little time lapse. You won't be able to see all of it, but you can see some of it. Oh, here's a point. Here's something I'd like to mention. So in time, you can edit your time lapse however you would like. You may want to slow things down at certain points. Say you want to see the drawing of the hand, and it's not just like whipping across. You can scale that time to whatever you need using the same process as we just did with the time remap. And then there are times where like you may want to, like for this foot, that's not a good angle on that foot. I was going into designing the boot mode and not really thinking about the angle of the foot. So I kind of played around with the design of it a little bit, and then I erased it all out. If you wanted to edit that out completely, you can just cut that out. And at this fast a time lapse, you probably would never notice it. I actually like seeing that when I watch time lapse. I like to see what people are thinking, seeing what the choices are made, what they were doing when they were making those choices. Anyway, that's one way you could do this. We might have a little time. Let's hop into Premiere and see if we can do this in Premiere with the time we have left. If not, and we get cut off, hey, that's what happens. But I'm going to bring in some media. Hopefully this works for us. Bringing in the same float on video that we had. And I'm going to just see if I can drag this in here. There we go. We've got our media. We've got our Photoshop in all of its glory. And you can do this. It's similar in Premiere, but it's a little different. But there are still masking options. If you want to have your properties open, if you go over to opacity, there is a free draw Bezier tool. And guess what? We can make a mask just like we did in After Effects. Bam. But because now you got to make a new layer. How do you make a layer? Well, you're not making a layer so much as you're making a new item. If you're in your project bin, you can right click, go to new item, and then add a color matte. And guess what we're going to do with this? It's going to make it to the same video settings unless you change it. And then we're just going to select the color we want. Click OK. New color matte. You could name it whatever you want. And you see you have this item now sitting in my bin. I'm going to drag this video up one and then add this behind it. And it's super small. It's there. I promise you. You just have to drag it out. And you can drag this out as long as you want. I'm not going to take it too far because we're about to reduce the size of this. Now, just to prove that it works, you can see there's a background and that's where it goes away. But there is one hang up that happens and there may be other ways around this. This is the best way I found to get around it. If you want to reduce your time, you go to speed duration. I just right click to get to that. And the limitation is you can only reduce your speed by 10,000%. You can grab this duration. Normally, if it's within that, you can just set your duration. You could just punch in 20 seconds and you would have 20 seconds. This won't do that. But you can drag, and you see as I drag this duration to be not as long, the percentage goes up. But I'm going to type in here, if it will allow me. It always does this. 10,000 plus. You can go over the amount. Like, I'm going to reduce the zeros. You see that that's at 6 minutes. If I add another 0, that is the max. If I keep adding zeros, nothing changes. That's because it's telling you that's it. Can do no more. I'm going to click OK. It's going to reduce it all the way down to 40 seconds or whatever it was. I'm going to pull this down here so we can see what we're looking at. Yep. All right, so we're at 40 seconds, but we still want it to go that extra little bit. Super simple solution on this one. Grab everything, nest it, click OK, and then you can change the duration. And the good thing this time is we can actually punch in our duration. If we want this at exactly 20 seconds, we can have it at exactly 20 seconds. There it is in all of its glory. And our time lapse is going to go on. I'm just going to let it roll. That is going to do it for us. I hope you learned a little something about making some time lapse. That is not it for today, though. I believe Ellie is up next. So stick around for that. And we have one more video challenge next week. Be sure to come back for that. And until then, I hope you have a good one, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.